All right. Thank you, Megan. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name's Kevin Hastcoat. I'm a solution architect here at NetApp. As Megan said, I've been doing, simply put, I'm a backup guy. Been doing backups about 20 years. And it's one of those things where it is a whole lot different than how it was when I got started in the business. That being said, when it comes to digital transformation, well, kind of looks a little like this. If you think about 6-8 months ago, that was probably on people's to-do list. It was something that was being thought of. Hey, we kind of need to do this at some point. We'll get around to it. Who actually thought that there was going to be something out there to make us all think about this a lot faster? It really just comes up and, man, just kind of broadsides you and smacks you in the side of the head and forces change. Well, that being said, when we think about what that change entails, well, from the concept of digital transformation, it's all about data. How fast can we get it there? How fast do we need it? Can't really transform without starting at the IT layer and then working our way into the business layer. And typically it's business that's going to drive that. At the same time, we can't go 5-10 minutes without cloud coming into play, in a conversation, whether it's on-prem, private cloud, hybrid, public, all the above. And the concept really, when we think about all this data, is moving it from data centers out to a fabric. And we'll get a little bit more into the concept of that fabric here in just a moment. But when you think about it, you hear more often than not, data is the new currency. It's the new gold. Data is the new oil. Personally, the way I see it, and in my opinion, data is life. It truly is life. And let me explain. I'm sure you've all seen this before. It's the John Hopkins Corona heat map. It's fluctuated. We've seen red get bigger. We hope to see it get smaller, but yet it continues to grow. When you think about this red, a red is made up of points, smaller dots. All those dots, well, they represent data points. But what those data points really represent are people. And that's it. That's why I say data is life, because all that red is made up of people, living, breathing. We hope they continue living and breathing people. Now think about the initiative that's taking place with this. This really is a global event. Covers the entire planet. Now think about the data behind all of that. Has to be gathered, all of that, the idea of putting this together, assembling it from across the globe. And remember, not everybody's on the same playing field. Everyone has different abilities, different restrictions, different capabilities, different processes. But yet we still have the ability to gather all this data and do something with it. Now, when you think about all that data, where does it come from? How does it get generated? Well, today, wow, man. Edge, core, cloud, we hear that all the time, but it comes from anywhere. Maybe, in this day and age, data can be born in cloud, live in cloud, die in cloud. It's mobile. Be born in the cloud, born in our data center, born in our very own on-prem facility, but it has to be accessible via mobile or, 24/7. Has to be available anytime, anywhere. Doesn't really matter where it is. And let's think about what else is generating that data in this day and age. Think about the amount of data that's generated with Tesla, or before the Tesla era. Look at airlines. Think about the amount of data that a single flight generates. All of that also gets fueled now with AI and machine learning. Not only is it there for analysis, but it also generates the data too. Generates it, consumes it, analyzes it, deletes it, all the above. Now, when you think about all those sources, all those places, all that data that gets created, when you think about it, it can't just be done willy-nilly. Chaos, yeah, it's one thing, but man, you got to know what you have, where you have it, what you're going to do with it, how does it get managed? It's got to be organized in some way, shape, or form. You got to have controls put around it. It has some kind of governance or compliance, retention, et cetera. Not to mention, it's all got to be connected in some way, shape, or form. And oftentimes nowadays, it's APIs. But it's all about making that data available. You know, maybe it's the business owner, the executives. Maybe it's your customers. Maybe it's development, your end users, all the above. All of this drives that innovation. And when you think about data protection, as we've called it for decades, really this is more about data availability. And that's I guess the new way of thinking about things. And I challenge folks to change their way of thinking rather than protecting the data and, you know, making copies like we used to. Now it's all about increasing the availability, you know, getting that data where we need it, when we need it, how we need it, how many copies of it we need. And at the same time, how long do we need it? And let's face it, it has temperature. What do we do with it once it's no longer hot? It's no longer up front and in production. Well, now we have to move it. It's cold. We need to get it to a lower tier so it's not up front. Going back to that where is it? Well, think about it. We've talked about the fact that it's distributed. It you know, cloud, again, it doesn't matter which cloud it is, whether it's on-prem or a private cloud or a public cloud. Nice thing is you know, as long as you have the ability to know where it is and get it where you need it, when you need it, how you need it, well, that's really what it boils down to. And the more we talk about it, this word data, you know, this concept of data, and the fabric that it spans. You know, I've got something kind of fun when you think about all this data, whether it's your own business data, your own personal data. You know, let's look at how data has changed and what we do with data over the last year. If you think about this from the concept of every minute of a day, there's some interesting things given, you know, there's some interesting comparisons and contrasts here. You know, one that really stuck out to me is if you think about Netflix and, you know, think about what they do, how much data they have. Now, this one is, I'm going to chalk up to the fact that 2020 isn't finished yet, but if you look at it, almost 700,000 hours of video streamed from Netflix. And, you know, here we are, August in 2020, and we're already up to 404,000 hours. That's a lot of data, a lot. And think about how they have to protect it, how they have to make that available across the globe. Other ones, when you get into things like the financial aspect, look at Venmo. You know, in the beginning, in 2019, well, we're talking about $162,000 every minute. Think about the transactions now. In 2020, we're looking at almost $240,000 every minute. That's a heck of a lot of data there. And that's a heck of a lot of business. Now, some of it's fun, some of it's not so fun. The fact of the matter is that data, as we see, is all over. Edge, core, cloud, mobile, you name it. It's all over. Now, when we talk about that, NetApp, we have a concept that we came up with about 6 years ago. We call it a data fabric, because really that data, think of it like a bed. If you think about this like a bed, well, you know, okay, we know beds typically have 4 corners. It's got sides, it's got insides, you know, the inside, the outside. Well, that fabric is, you know, the sheet that goes around it. That's the data. It goes all over it. It covers the whole thing, covers the corners, covers the sides, covers the inside. You know, it doesn't matter when you look at it from the slides perspective, it doesn't matter. Maybe it's our watch. Maybe it's, you know, inside our data center. Maybe it's in a cloud, multiple clouds, airline, you know, military, oil platforms, you name it. The fact of the matter is that data has to be moved, again, where you need it, when you need it, how you need it, how many copies, how long. What's its temperature? How we accomplish that and what we have at the heart or the backbone of that data fabric. Well, really, in the NetApp world, it's SnapMirror. That's our transport engine that drives that ability to get that data wherever you need it, however you need it. Doesn't matter what it is. We can get that where you need it so that enables your business to continue or your fun to continue, all the above. You know, it's nothing in life is all business all the time. So, you know, there is that fun side, you know, and think about what happens when you when you go to look at something on your phone and it just kind of sits there and spins. Well, you move on to the next thing. Think about that with your customers as well. Same thing happens when they try to, look at something on your website or something. It sits there, loads, caches, waiting, buffering, video, whatever. Same thing. They move on. The ability to provide that data or move that data wherever you need it and however you need it. Well, like I said, that's the concept of the data fabric, and the backbone of being able to do that is that replication engine. But we don't just stop there. When you think about that replication engine, well, from a lineup, well, across the board, it doesn't really matter whether you need spinning disk, whether you need all flash, whether you need to live in an object store or live in cloud, or you want converged or hyper converged. The nice thing is all of these moving parts play together. And on top of that, it gets even better when you combine that with Veeam. Yes, we have our parts that can move and interact with each other. But then when you tie in the Veeam aspect and you tie in that it puts a bow on it, it makes all of a sudden, it simplifies it, makes it just a beautiful organization. And again, when I talked about cloud and getting into that cloud concept, well, remember, we can deploy ONTAP, which, make no mistake, it is the #1 storage operating system in the world. And it's not just me that says this. This is analysts that say this. This is our customers that say this. This isn't just NetApp that touts it. But the fact of the matter is, ONTAP is ONTAP is ONTAP. You run ONTAP on-prem, you run it virtually on somebody else's platform. Run it and deploy it in minutes in cloud. Pick your hyperscaler. You can deploy a cloud version or Cloud Volumes ONTAP. It takes roughly 30 minutes. And if you think about that, you could actually be copying your data up into a hyperscaler in ONTAP within an hour. Now we've removed the lengthy deployment time, do all this through our own cloud manager, and think about it. As I said, ONTAP is ONTAP is ONTAP. That means all that ONTAP goodness. We're talking snapshot, SnapMirror, multi-protocol, thin provisioning. You get into compaction and compression and deduplication. All of that is in there. Encryption, and not just encryption at rest, encryption in flight and at rest. End-to-end encryption. Doesn't matter. The ability to clone data, lock it down for compliance purposes with SnapLock. All of that native to ONTAP. Now again, tie in the tiering aspect of that, being able to deploy this. Remember, I did mention data has temperature. When it's up front in production, it's hot, but it's done its job. The application's finished with it. Well, time to move it on to a lower tiered storage. Save a little money. Don't consume all that top tier 1 storage with cold data. Again, the idea is giving you the ability to come up and deploy the way you want to, follow your protocols, your initiatives, your requirements. Not dictated to you, but dictated to us. We enable you. And then through the partnership of NetApp and Veeam together, we make it simple to use, simple to deploy, simple to make available, simple to consume. And here's what I mean by that. Remember, we're talking about that data fabric that's powered by NetApp. But then when you think about that bow that Veeam places around it, gives you the ability not just to orchestrate and scale to cloud and optimize and all of this, but this now gives you hooks into all of the NetApp goodness managed through one environment. Set up Veeam, ties in seamlessly, goes through, manages it, protects it, but more importantly, makes it available. Makes it available how you need it, where you need it, and when you need it, while at the same time giving you deep insights to what you have, and at the same time maintaining it how long you need it, wherever you need it. Now, again, that's the goodness. I mean, this is one of our top tier partners. Veeam has the ability to do things with ONTAP and with NetApp that nobody else can. And that's the beauty of this. We're talking about a unique solution and a unique partnership. And it doesn't come without there being, complexities in the environment. Let's think about this for a minute. For folks that don't have something like this partnership in place, Data applications have specific data that they're dependent on. If you think about how things have been in the past, there's resource constraints. You've got point solutions for individual applications, individual hardware types, specific protection products for specific applications. While at the same time, putting all of that, all those point solutions, different applications, different platforms, all those building blocks, that creates complexity, because now when something happens, not everybody knows how everything works. Not everybody knows how everything goes together. People tend to take on and hoard that information themselves. But when you take a partnership like Veeam and NetApp together, all of a sudden these outcomes, these possibilities become a lot simpler. You know, that complexity really, it no longer exists because you have seamless integration points between the two. Think about it like like dance partners. When you see ballroom dancers flowing across the floor, think about it. That's Veeam and NetApp right there. They become one, seamlessly flowing, gliding. That's just how we work. You have that resource management no longer, well, there are no constraints. Again, it's seamless. They integrate beautifully. And this isn't something that's new either. You know, we didn't just come up with this a year or two ago. No, we've been doing this, well, longer than I've been at NetApp. When they started, well, it's a beautiful alliance. Started out, well, and each year you can see, every year we have additional releases and integration points, deeper and deeper integration points. If you all the way to 2020, which has been our deepest integration yet, when you look at the goodness that is in V10, oh my gosh, from NAS to replication, you name it, it doesn't get any better than what we've done in 2020. Just think what's coming next. So you have the ability to tie into those snapshots, move those snapshots, what's in those snapshots. And then when we get into the Veeam Availability Orchestrator, the version 3 that just came out last month, man, we're talking about an exclusive NetApp release. Today, it supports only NetApp snapshots. DR orchestration like no other out there. So, and Adam has even more information on that. But the fact of the matter is, and what I'm trying to drive home is, this is not a new partnership. This is a partnership that has been tried, trusted, and proven. And not only is it proven, it's getting stronger each and every day. So what do you get when you combine the two of us? Well, for starters, Gartner has us at the top of the list, both of us, not just one. As I mentioned earlier, ONTAP is the #1 storage operating system out there. So what happens when you put two Magic Quadrant leaders together? Oh man, now you're talking best in breed, best in class. We've all seen Westminster. Well, it's not just one. Nah, it's NetApp and Veeam together, walking through there, and it's a beautiful thing. Not only do you have top-notch data availability platforms with Veeam and the replication engine like none other in the world with NetApp, you truly have an industry-leading solution that, in my opinion, is second to none. And believe me, I can sit here and get into this and spend an entire day, talking about how cool things are together. But I'd really like to turn things over to Adam here to get into just how deep things go from a Veeam perspective, and get into just what Veeam can do with NetApp on the floor.
Thank you so much to Kevin, aka Tony Stark, aka Iron Man. I appreciate appreciate that. Hi everyone, Adam Bergh here from Veeam Software. Just a little bit about me, real quick. I am Veeam's global architect for NetApp solutions, so I focus specifically on NetApp related technologies here at Veeam, and so working on deeper integrations in our joint solutions together exclusively here at Veeam. Many of you know Veeam as this data protection company, the world's best virtualization data protection company, but we're really much more than that. And what we're doing today, specifically with NetApp, is far beyond strictly being able to back up and recover, although that is a key capability. we're really building a full data management platform here and everything that we're bringing to market has deep ties into the NetApp data availability and data fabric platform, whether it's cloud, it's virtual, it's physical, it's software as a service platform. We're wrapping all of our solutions around all of those data sources, whether it's monitoring and analytics, it's orchestration for all of that. It's of course, the base layer of backup and replication, but all of that, the foundation for all of that is our deep storage integration and our deep API integration into ONTAP platform, enabling not only traditional data availability services, but it's intelligence, it's cloud mobility, the ability to move data. Maybe that's what was born in the cloud, bringing that back on prem or vice versa. Wrapping analytics around that, understanding where your data is, where it needs to be. Automating the data movement and orchestration to take away the complexities of manual intervention of that data movement. And of course, something that needs to be talked about a lot more is governance and compliance. Whether you have right to be forgotten regulations and compliances, GDPR, if you're over, if you have data that lives over in GDPR compliant countries, the ability to be able to understand what's in your data, being able to comply with local regulations, being able to remove data from secondary data sources if needed to be, all needs to be holistically wrapped into that entire platform that your data resides on. So I want to put some tangible, real world scenarios in here. We talked a lot about data movement, data flows, and what's possible, but I want to talk to you a little bit about what we're exactly doing with your data. And I call this sort of section to the cloud, from the cloud, and within the cloud. And some of the to the cloud type of workflows that we're enabling today, sort of this, one of the easiest to the cloud workflows is leveraging cloud as a backup repository or backup location to replace some of the legacy tape-like archives that traditionally we've seen. Cloud is a much better use case for long-term data retention. We sort of think of cloud as this infinite storage, and we talk about object storage when we talk about moving data to the cloud. Leveraging cloud as disaster recovery location. So traditionally, a lot of organizations would build a whole secondary data center with like-for-like hardware or expensive physical infrastructure capital purchases for a disaster recovery. Leveraging the cloud now for those disaster recovery and leveraging things like infrastructure as a service, pay-as-you-go type of models. But when you think about disaster recovery, these are not common events. So why have hardware that you own sitting there doing absolutely nothing, waiting for a disaster, when we could leverage pay-as-you-use sort of infrastructure models in the cloud and leverage those. So Veeam and NetApp are enabling cloud-based disaster recovery locations together with wrapped in full orchestration and automation. Protecting software as a service, right? And bringing that data potentially back on-prem so where your software as a service data is being protected. One of the biggest use cases, and one that most organizations are using today, is Office 365. That's the most common software as a service platforms today. And I think most people don't even realize that your data as it resides in Office 365, whether it's your Exchange email, whether it's your OneDrive, all the files that we keep in OneDrive now, whether it's your SharePoint, none of that is actually being backed up by Microsoft. They are just providing the infrastructure. So if you go back and read your contract with Microsoft, there is no data protection, no backup that Microsoft is doing of your data. So protecting that software as a service data is a critical piece to when you start leveraging those types of platforms. Veeam makes the ability to bring that data back on-prem or even store that data in the cloud, giving you additional restore capabilities. Infrastructure as a service. So infrastructure as a service is what we commonly refer to as your traditional AWS, Azure compute resources, your Google Cloud compute resources, and protecting data as it what we call cloud native or born in the cloud type applications. We can actually protect that data, or even enable what we call cloud mobility, of bringing that data that maybe started off as cloud native and bringing that back on-prem and being able to bring that up in an on-prem VMware infrastructure, for example. So bringing data back from the cloud, bringing it back on-prem, and leveraging Veeam's and NetApp's cloud mobility capabilities is a great example of what we're enabling a from the cloud type architecture. One of the most common use cases there would be something like dev test in the cloud and productions on-prem. Dev test starts in Azure, AWS. You bring that data back on-prem where it's production in VMware. So that doing that data flow, that data conversion is a key workflow. And then from within the cloud, this is also called multi-cloud type architectures. We're seeing this more and more where organizations that are serious about public cloud are not putting all their eggs in one singular public cloud basket. You will see large-scale cloud outages. Just read the news when AWS having a complete outage, or Azure, right? Leveraging different multi-cloud type architectures is something that you want your technology that you're investing in to be able to make use of. Vendor lock-in is something that we talk about a lot. Why lock yourself into a singular cloud when you can leverage things like business continuity between multiple clouds, being able to have a primary site or active between AWS and Azure. This technology is here. It's today. It's something that Veeam and NetApp are doing together, being able to fail over cloud providers, being able to convert data in between an AWS and Azure formats, for example, for those native cloud workloads. Business continuity in the cloud is absolutely technology that Veeam and NetApp are enabling. And the last one is, just something, it's similar to our cloud backup, cross cloud backup. If you're thinking that your organization is going to be cloud native or cloud first, and you want to keep all that data in the cloud, we can absolutely take your backups and send them across the wire and land your backups in another cloud provider. This again, this is similar to business continuity, but this could be leveraging the most cost-effective storage between clouds. Maybe you like the services in AWS, but Azure's cloud object storage, their blob storage, is cheaper for long-term data recovery or data protection. Or you can use cross-cloud backup, and it gives you the option now to restore that data into any cloud that you want, depending on where you need that data to be recovered to. And it gives you the flexibility of doing multiple clouds with your data protection, data backup strategies. So just a few tangible, real world benefits that Veeam and NetApp are using together from a capability standpoint. So what should you be looking for when you look for solutions? If you are looking at NetApp infrastructure and buying into the NetApp data fabric story, got to have these integrations. These deep integrations that provide you with lower RPOs, or the lowest possible RPOs and RTOs. So RPOs being those recovery point objectives, your recovery time objectives. Keeping those as low as possible are critical to data availability. And the deep integrations that Veeam provides into not only ONTAP, but NetApp's Element storage operating system that powers HCI and SolidFire platforms provide those integrations that really are critical in this day and age from a data availability standpoint. So let's take a look at some of what those integrations are that we're doing together really quick here. Now, this is a slide that I could probably spend an entire webinar on, kind of detailing each one of these and why they're useful and why they're critical capabilities from an integration standpoint. But I'll try to do this really quickly. I'll keep an eye on the time here. So one of the NAS data backup, or what we call unstructured data, is the fastest growing data type that we see out there today. So unstructured data, this could be deep image repositories, AI or ML type data, even things like home directories or just general office type documents fall under what we call unstructured data. And protecting all of those data, we're seeing data sets now that expand into the billions of files, into the petabytes of data. How do you protect all that? How do you index all that data? How do you give granular self-service recovery in an integrated way? And Veeam released on our version 10 platform that we released earlier this year, the ability to protect unstructured data as it resides natively in the ONTAP platform, with our ability to actually leverage ONTAP-based storage snapshots for the ability to not only offer the fastest possible data recovery, but being able to protect locked and in-use files, which is a critical capability. You don't want to be able to not protect files that are actively being worked on and used by your end users. So that integration is critical here for protecting even the largest of unstructured data sets. And the next key capability that I want to touch on here is called backup from storage snapshot technology. So when you're talking about virtualized environments, especially really high I/O critical virtualized environments, protecting data in such a way that doesn't disrupt the actual application itself during data protection is critical. So if any of you are familiar with traditional VMware type data protection, one of the biggest problems is application disruption during data protection, which is very tricky, especially when you're talking about 24/7 environments that have very, very strict latency requirements on those. Think of your important Oracle databases, SQL databases, critical applications. The ability to protect that data more often with less application disruption and achieving the lowest possible backup windows is what we're doing with our backup from storage snapshot technology integrated into NetApp data platforms. And with our ability to actually orchestrate hardware-based replication, Kevin spent some time talking about SnapMirror. This is the world's best hardware-based data replication engine. Being able to integrate with the SnapMirror and SnapVault data replication engines, we can actually construct a backup from a hardware-based replication of that data, application-consistent hardware-based replication of data, which allows us to actually protect data, causing zero impact onto production storage, because we're actually building that backup from a replicated copy of that data onto secondary storage. So through our integrations, we can actually reduce the impact of data protection to zero on that production infrastructure. So very, very critical capabilities when you're talking about today's high I/O 24/7 environments. And then snapshot orchestration in general, this is the ability to actually, to supplement a traditional data protection scheme, a traditional streaming off-box backup, supplementing that with the world's best snapshot technology that resides in ONTAP and Element OSs, the ability to do things like create a application consistent snapshot very, very often. These are sort of lightweight, low touch data protection points that we can use to supplement a traditional backups, which typically most organizations might run once, twice, 3 times a day. Now we can do things like 15-minute snapshots, 20-minute, 1-hour snapshots. When you think about data recovery, losing 12 hours worth of data or losing 24 hours of data, that used to be accepted because that's how often we were protecting our data. It was once every day or every night. It's not acceptable anymore. We cannot lose 24 hours of data, 12 hours of data. Today we can take advantage of things like zero RPO with synchronous based replication, or taking these snapshots, very, very quickly, very, very light on the application when we touch them, and coordinating the application consistency to make sure that we're flushing any memory, any data out of memory down to disk before that snapshot, in a very coordinated process. So that's what we talk about when we're talking about snapshot orchestration, giving your organization more data recovery points and being able to recover everything that we could normally, from a traditional backup, right from those storage snapshots as well. And that's what we use Veeam Explorers for storage snapshot technology. So Veeam Explorer technology is our patented granular data recovery technology that's exclusive and unique to Veeam backup and replication, the ability to reach into any application, any data type, and pull out individual granular data types, even things like metadata. And when you talk about Oracle databases and SQL databases, pulling out not only the full database itself, but individual tables, individual transactions, being able to restore down to the absolute second transaction when you're doing a recovery. Being able to reach into things like Active Directory and pulling out metadata or individual password or individual user or OU right from Active Directory. That's what we're talking about from a granular recovery standpoint, and being able to reach into a NetApp snapshot for the fastest possible recovery and those, the lowest RPOs possible is what we're talking about with our integration, our capabilities here with NetApp. So very important data availability, critical technology here. And the last one here is something that we call Veeam Data Labs. So Veeam Data Labs is our ability to leverage all of this data protection, these data recovery points that we're creating and orchestrating, and getting some additional value out of them. So data labs, think of this as, there's a lot of different technology or use cases for data labs. Being able to give your developers an instant, up to the second copy of your production environment to do their development against. So think of giving them an instant copy of a production database to test their newest development on. We can provision through our data labs technology. Veeam actually provisions a virtual router that we can then use our instant VM recovery technology to actually spin up instant copies of your environment behind this virtual router to give them, instant availability to production copies of your data. So that's one use case. We've seen things like compliance and analytics and patch testing and upgrade testing. There's all these different use cases that we can take advantage of with the Veeam Data Labs, and then leveraging instantly created flex clone copies of your environment allows us to do this in a way that it takes seconds to provision entire labs for your environment, up to the minute of that data. And these are things that can be scheduled. You can have your developers come in every day and have a fresh data lab based on production workload. So very powerful technology that Veeam is enabling with NetApp's core fundamental infrastructure technologies. Second things that you want to be looking at when you're looking at new technologies for your environment. Is it cloud native, right? Or is it just a bolt on? Or is it a future leaning technology for that organization? You want to be looking at organizations that are cloud native today, are available and understand the unique construction of cloud native applications. And Veeam and NetApp, I think, understand the nature of cloud native better than most organizations and what we're doing together there. Understanding that data that's born in the cloud is fundamentally different than data that originated on-prem. So looking at Veeam and NetApp technology today, you're going to get two organizations that have cloud native tools available today, understand the nature of cloud native, and understand the nature of moving data back and forth from the cloud. So what are some of those cloud native capabilities there today? Let's get the next slide, please. Thanks, Scott. So some of the cloud native capabilities that we have today, number one, direct restore to AWS and Azure, and the ability to actually move between clouds. So when we talk about direct restore to AWS and Azure, that means I can protect AWS workloads, move them to Azure. I can protect Azure workloads and move them to AWS, or I can even move them back to a VMware infrastructure. Being able to take those cloud native workloads and move them, convert them into different cloud formats is something that is a key technology. Cloud tier, understanding object storage and the benefits of object storage for things like long-term data retention. So Veeam has native integrations for Amazon S3, Azure Blob Object Storage, and even NetApp's own StorageGrid S3 compatible S3 object storage. And the way that we leverage that storage is because it is a much more cost-effective way to store long-term data. So when you're talking about, I need to, we've got some requirements to store some of this cold data. And we talked about data temperature earlier, colder data. I want to move this off to less expensive cloud object storage without having to have large capital purchases. I can take advantage of these newer object storage technologies natively built in. This is like single mouse click type of integration that we're talking about here. We talked about this earlier, and that's Veeam backup for Office 365, software as a service, being able to understand the unique natures of software as a service platforms, some of the data protection requirements and gaps that are there, and being able to protect that data to things like S3, Object Blob, Azure Blob Storage, or StorageGrid, or even taking that back on-prem and using traditional storage to protect that data. That's a cloud native product from Veeam. And then Veeam backup, for AWS and Azure, cloud native, right in the marketplace, 2 minutes, I got it up and running. Data protection for AWS and Azure is there today, right in the marketplaces. So this is API driven, agentless, cloud native data protection for AWS and Azure that's available today from Veeam. Of course, all of this goodness doesn't need to come at a major cost, right? We here at Veeam, we sort of have this philosophy: if you're building great tools, you need to make this available to the masses. So everything that we put to market is extremely cost effective and flexible from a cost perspective and a licensing perspective. So don't think that everything that we're talking today is going to be out of reach. This is available to all organizations at every budget with flexible licensing models to take advantage of all of this. And security, okay, like this is fundamental. Everything that we do together with NetApp and every tool that Veeam brings to market, number one focus is it secure? Can we protect against internal and external threats? We have encryption across the wire, encryption at rest, and then the key critical technology that I want to mention here is something that we call the immutable data layer. The ability to actually make data unmodifiable, undeletable, always available to even against the most sophisticated internal or external threat. So think of I think protecting against external threats. Yeah, that's something that most people fundamentally understand what needs to be done. But protecting against internal threats, I think, is a much bigger challenge. So how do you protect against the storage administrator that has full access to the storage layer, that has root credentials, or how do you protect against that? So technologies that NetApp bring to the table, like SnapLock technology, can actually make data completely unmodifiable, unremovable, even to root level credentials, which is a key critical technology. Veeam has a technology that we call Object Lock API support for object storage, being able to put the data into object storage and actually tag each individual object with a timestamp that says this data cannot be modified, removed, or deleted by anybody until this date. And these are technologies that you can enable with just check marks, type of enabling this critical security capability. So when you're talking about when you're looking at solutions, think about the immutability of data, and do the solutions that you're bringing into your data center offer immutable data solutions, and Veeam and NetApp certainly do. And here's just a quick architecture that we like to promote between Veeam and NetApp. Now, it's certainly not the only architecture, but this is one that we really love. And this is, for organizations that have a traditional on-prem and cloud-based data infrastructure, what we call the hybrid cloud, if you will, with Veeam acting as the orchestration layer as we move data from a primary ONTAP system to a secondary ONTAP system. And then maybe we do a data protection scheme off to a NetApp E-Series platform. And then we have the ability to natively tier that data for long-term or data conversion up into the cloud, like AWS, Azure, or leveraging StorageGrid. All of this workflow, this orchestration can be done in a single data protection policy or data availability policy that we can enable in just a few mouse clicks. So data flow and data movement with deep integrations between the platforms in making this easy and consumable is really what we're working on together. And being able to leverage, best in breed technologies from NetApp, being able to orchestrate that workflow with Veeam, having that single pane of glass for understanding where your data is, where it resides, and how to bring it back and landing it on any platform. That's really what Veeam brings to the table here, and that's why the partnership really is a better together partnership between the two, because Veeam offers the ability to take advantage of all the NetApp goodness and then understand and analyze your data and workflows within a single interface. Last but not least, the last thing I want to touch on is just a brand new release of a key technology here at Veeam. It's a tool that we call the Veeam Availability Orchestrator. So this is, again, if you want to hear more, we do whole webinars just on this topic alone. But the disaster recovery orchestration and business continuity orchestration is fundamentally different than traditional data protection schemes. And when you start thinking about how do I protect against an entire data center level failover, and how do I bring my data centers up in a fully orchestrated way, in a tested and repeatable way, is something that every organization needs to be able to do and fundamentally answer. Do I have set RPOs and RTOs for every application, every bit of data in my environment, and how do I assure compliance with those RPOs and RTOs when doing full data center level failover. And that's really what Veeam Availability Orchestrator is all about, being able to assure that your DR compliance is provable and testable, readily available. And then when you actually do have a disaster, you have basically one mouse click to actually run a fully validated DR failover orchestrated plan for all of your data. And version 3 integrates exclusively into ONTAP, SnapMirror, and Snapshot capabilities for the world's best replication engine and the fastest level failovers of your data between data centers. So that's Veeam Availability Orchestrator V3. If you want to hear more about that, happy to do additional demos, go deeper on what that is. But if you're not using a DR orchestration tool today, this is something you absolutely need to be looking at.
To that point, Adam, I'd like to just take a second to plug. We did a session. Well, I actually had nothing to do with the session, but there was a deep dive on the Veeam Availability Orchestrator V3 yesterday, and so be sure to reach out to your NetApp or Veeam folks to inquire about it, because it was recorded and should be published if I'm not mistaken. But it was a total deep dive into just how powerful this can be. So it was just great information, and I just want to give a little shout out to the session that happened yesterday.
Thank you for that, Kevin. So last slide here, and before we go on to some Q&A, it looks like we got some time for Q&A. If you want to hear more or you want to see more, visit the URL below, pull out your cell phone, scan that QR code. This is going to take you to the landing zone where you're going to find white papers, customer testimonials. You'll find links to download our products with integration into NetApp with free trial keys. It's fully functional. You'll find contact information to reach out to Veeam if you want to do a full POCs. We're happy to do that. We're happy to work with you directly on testing in your environment, or even testing in NetApp's or Veeam's environments. If you want to see how this stuff works in reality, because we're excited to show you this stuff. And this is not vaporware. This is real. This is here today. It's and it is quite impressive what we're doing together.
That there's quite a bit of content around this as well that's out there. I know that there's a number of short, simple to consume videos, ranging anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes tops, going over specific integration points between Veeam and NetApp and how it all works and what it looks like. So, as to Adam's point, this isn't vaporware. This is the real deal. It's out there in the wild, in use today, and customers are making their data available to their entire business and their customers through the partnership of NetApp and Veeam. So that being said, I'd say if there's any questions, curiosities, we've got a few minutes here that we can dive into any kind of fun random questions that come up. And
thanks, Kevin and Adam. Yeah, again, if you have a question, feel free to take yourself off mute and pose it, or you can pop it in the chat. While we wait, if any of those come across, I just want to bring attention to, I did pop into the chat. We do have an additional NetApp and Veeam discussion next week with Adam and Janine Walter, who is part of the NetApp team, on orchestrated disaster recovery for your NetApp and VMware environments. So I did put that URL. If you or anyone in your organization might be interested to attend that, it's going to be another really helpful session. So I hope everyone found this session helpful. Like I said, we will be sending the recording to you post-event, as well as an evaluation form that we would really appreciate any and all feedback you might have. We want to make sure we continue to make these sessions we offer impactful and helpful. So I haven't seen any questions come through, but I will be quiet and see if anyone has anything for the last minute or two.
Yeah, feel free to come off mute. Don't be shy.
No, this is one you'll hear from me. Feedback is a gift. So and give generously. This is one of those where it helps drive how these sessions are put together and how they are offered. We all have day jobs, and time truly is our most valuable commodity. It's the one thing in life that we can't ever get more of. So I certainly do appreciate each and every one of you taking a little bit of time out of your day to come and spend it with us.
Absolutely.
Hey, Adam, this is Clay. We've actually talked to you before. You've helped us out with some Flex Vault and Veeam. So I have a question. Say you have, and this doesn't have to do with data fabric. It's really hardware based, right, from DC to DC. So you've got a site A that you are taking multiple Veeam backups, multi-tenant, onto a NetApp. And then you have a site B, which we are actually vaulting over a longer extended time, say 90 days, 12 weeks worth of weeklies. Is there a way to restore a specific file from a vaulted snapshot without having to do like a snap mirror restore on that actual file path back to the source node through Veeam?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So that 100% works. The way that works is we would actually mount the snapshot. We would need to be able to mount that snapshot in the secondary data center to an ESXi host. So if you've got the ability to mount, if there's an ESXi host in that same data center with that secondary ONTAP system, the snap vaulted data center, we would use that. Or you would have to, if there's no ESXi host in that secondary data center, we would have to be able to mount across, across a link to any available ESXi host. That's really the only requirement to be able for Veeam to access that data. So recovering data obviously is from a snap mirror or snap vaulted location is 100% a capability that we have. Otherwise, we wouldn't be integrating with snap mirror, snap vault, because we need to be able to recover that data. So yes, that absolutely works. And if you're having trouble getting it to work, just reach out to me directly, and I'll hop on a screen share and get it working for you.
Cool. Thanks.
Well, I haven't seen anything else come across through chat. So if there's no other questions, and we can wrap up, give some people 5 minutes back of their day. Again, we appreciate everyone on this call, your participation, and we hope you found it helpful. Thank you, Adam and Kevin, as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone so much for joining. I really appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you all. Look forward to catching you all on the next one.